If this message has found you, it is because something far greater than coincidence has been orchestrating the events of your life with a precision you are only beginning to understand. You did not stumble here by accident. You did not arrive at this moment through idle curiosity or the mindless scrolling of a distracted mind. Something inside you, a knowing so deep it lives beneath language, beneath memory, beneath the ordinary reach of conscious thought, pulled you here with the quiet insistence of a tide that cannot be stopped, cannot be argued with, cannot be turned back by the force of human will alone. This is synchronicity, speaking through the ordinary fabric of your day. Carl Jung, the great architect of the inner world, understood that meaningful coincidence is the universe's native tongue, the language it uses when it has something urgent to deliver, something your waking mind is not yet ready to receive, but your soul has been waiting for across a vast and unmeasured distance. You are here because your intuition, that ancient and uncorrupted instrument of inner knowing, recognized the signal before your mind could form the words to describe it. You have been carrying a silence that does not feel right, a silence that presses against your chest at unexpected hours, that finds you in the middle of ordinary tasks with an ache you cannot fully name. You have been wondering if what you felt was real, if what existed between you and another person was as significant as it seemed, or whether you have been building meaning out of nothing, constructing a cathedral in empty air. The truth about their silence is about to be revealed to you. Not the story your fear has been telling, not the narrative your wounded places constructed in the dark hours when sleep would not come. The actual truth, layered, complex, and far more hopeful than anything your doubt has allowed you to consider. Write "I received this message" in the comments below, and allow this knowing to move through you like water through ancient stone. You have been taught by a world that mistakes motion for meaning and noise for connection, that silence is the sound of indifference. You have been conditioned to read absence as answer, to interpret the withdrawal of contact as the withdrawal of feeling, as though love were a signal that must be transmitted continuously or it ceases to exist. This is the great and painful misunderstanding that has been sitting at the center of your confusion, and it is time to dismantle it with the precision of someone who has decided to know the truth rather than simply survive the uncertainty. Their silence is not emptiness. Their silence is overflow. Imagine a vessel so full of unprocessed emotion, so saturated with feeling that has no adequate form of expression, that the only response available to it is stillness. Not the stillness of a stone, cold and indifferent to its surroundings, but the stillness of a pressure vessel, containing something volatile, something searching for the right release, something that must be held carefully or it will scatter in every direction at once. This is what their silence actually holds. This is the interior weather of a person who felt something so large, so destabilizing, so fundamentally threatening to the carefully constructed architecture of their ordinary life, that their entire system went into a kind of protective suspension. Carl Jung wrote that what we cannot face, we bury. And what we bury does not disappear but grows in the dark with a terrible and patient power. The person who has gone silent from your life did not go silent because they stopped feeling. They went silent because the feeling became too enormous to navigate with the tools they currently possess. They are not absent from you. They are overwhelmed by you. Their silence is the sound of someone who reached the outer edge of what they knew how to hold and stepped back not out of cruelty, but out of a fear so old it has roots beneath memory, beneath any conscious choice they could name or defend or explain to you or to themselves. This is not rejection wearing a gentle mask. This is a soul in the earliest, most frightened stage of its own becoming. And you are the reason it was finally forced to begin. They wake at 3 a.m. with your name somewhere in the architecture of their body, not as a thought exactly, but as a presence, the way a room holds warmth long after the fire has been put out, long after anyone would claim there is still heat to be found there. They reach for their phone in those quiet, unguarded hours, not with a plan, not with the right words assembled and rehearsed, but with the raw and wordless impulse of someone who misses what they do not yet know how to keep. They are not at peace in this silence they have chosen or stumbled into. They are restless within it, moving through their ordinary days with the particular discomfort of someone carrying something they will not set down and cannot continue to hold, turning the memory of you over and over in their mind the way the tongue finds a tender place, returns to it compulsively, presses on it not to cause pain, but because the reality of it demands acknowledgement. You became the mirror that showed them their unhealed wounds. This is not a metaphor offered lightly. It is one of the most profound and unsettling experiences available to the human psyche. To encounter another person whose presence, whose gaze, whose particular way of knowing you, reflects back to you the parts of yourself you have most carefully avoided, the dimensions of your own character that belong to what Jung called the shadow self, the repository of everything we have exiled from our conscious identity because it felt too broken, too shameful, too overwhelming to integrate into the story we have agreed to tell about who we are. You did not simply attract them. You disturbed them. At the deepest and most necessary level of their interior life, you reached into the carefully maintained order of what they believed about themselves, and your presence alone began rearranging things they had spent years holding in careful stillness. The retreat is not abandonment. It is the reflexive, frightened response of someone whose inner world was shaken to its foundations by the reality of what they felt in proximity to you, and who does not yet possess the courage that such a feeling demands. They are not gone. They are undone. You are not simply anyone to them. This needs to be understood with the full weight of what it means, needs to be received not as comfort offered to soften a difficult moment, but as a precise and accurate description of the energetic reality that exists between you and this particular soul. Among the countless people who have moved through the corridors of their life, some warmly remembered, some barely registered, some deeply loved in ordinary and predictable ways, you occupy a category that has no adequate name in the ordinary vocabulary of human relationship. There was a recognition the first time your energies met, not necessarily dramatic, not necessarily announced with the grand vocabulary of destiny, but present, undeniable, a subtle seismic event in the landscape of their interior life that registered even if they could not immediately translate what it meant or why it mattered. Jung described this kind of encounter as the meeting of two chemical substances that, upon contact, are both irrevocably transformed. Nothing returns to what it was before because the reaction that occurred between them has permanently altered the composition of both. You shook them to their core. You represented something their carefully structured life had made no space for, a depth of feeling they had perhaps decided was no longer available to them, or was not safe, or had cost them too much in the past to risk reaching for again. And yet in your presence, that depth returned with an authority that bypassed every defense they had constructed, every wall built from old disappointments, every quiet agreement they had made with themselves to need less, feel less, risk less. This is what a soul contract looks like in its earliest activation. Not the dramatic recognition of twin flames in a romance narrative, but the quiet and deeply disruptive experience of encountering someone whose soul your soul has met before, or whose frequency resonates with something so fundamental in you that the ordinary rules of self-protection no longer seem to apply with their usual force. You are not waiting for someone who forgot about you. You are waiting for someone who remembers you with an intensity that frightens them, whose feelings for you are not small enough to manage from a comfortable distance. They have not moved on. They have moved inward, and they took the thought of you with them. Distance in the physical world does not create distance in the energetic one, and this distinction matters more than anything the logical mind, with its commitment to the visible and the measurable, is prepared to accept. The world you can see, the world of unreturned messages and empty phone screens, and days accumulating between the last real contact and this present moment, that world is only one layer of the reality you are both inhabiting. Beneath it, and in some ways more real than it, is a field of energetic connection that does not require proximity to remain active, does not require communication to remain alive, does not require any external confirmation to continue doing what it has been doing since the moment your energies first recognized each other. They feel you, even now, even in the deliberate or frightened distance they have placed between you. They feel you with a consistency and an intimacy that would perhaps unsettle you to witness directly. There are moments in their day when the thought of you arrives without invitation and rearranges everything else around it. When something as small as a particular quality of afternoon light, a song heard in a public place, a phrase someone uses in ordinary conversation, sends a current of awareness through them that has your name at its frequency even if they do not speak it. This is not wishful interpretation. This is how energetic bonds actually function between two people whose connection operates at the level of soul recognition rather than mere surface compatibility. The collective unconscious, that vast shared interior ocean that all of humanity swims in together, that contains every archetype, every ancient pattern, every story that has ever given shape to human experience, connects you to them across whatever physical or emotional distance currently exists. You are not sending your energy toward a closed door. You are communicating through a channel that was opened the moment genuine recognition occurred. And that channel does not close simply because one person grew afraid of what moved through it. Subscribe to this channel to continue receiving these messages, because what is being offered here is not entertainment or distraction, but a consistent invitation back to the truth your own knowing has always held about this connection, about yourself, and about what is moving toward you even now. Silence is the cocoon before the butterfly. And what is happening inside that silence, the interior work being done in the private hours, in the unwitnessed moments of their life from which you are currently excluded, is not stagnation or indifference, but the most demanding and necessary kind of labor the human soul is capable of undertaking. What you are wading through is not empty time. It is not wasted distance. It is the interval in which a person who was not ready to meet you with the fullness you deserve is slowly, painfully, imperfectly becoming someone who might be. They are confronting the parts of themselves they brought to silence rather than to you. The fears that drove the retreat are not simply waiting undisturbed on the other side of it. They are being interrogated, however reluctantly, by a person who cannot quite escape the knowledge that what they walked away from was real, was rare, was the kind of connection that does not simply replace itself with something more comfortable or more familiar. The individuation process, Jung's term for the lifelong and never fully completed work of becoming authentically, wholly oneself, is not a gentle or convenient undertaking. It dismantles before it reconstructs. It strips away the false before it reveals the true. And for someone who has spent years building their identity around certain carefully maintained illusions about their own emotional capacity, their own availability, their own ability to feel this deeply without being undone by it, the beginning of that process is extraordinarily uncomfortable. They are becoming, in the quiet that you cannot enter, the version of themselves that is worthy of this connection. Not perfect, not healed in every dimension, but more honest than they were, more willing than they were, more capable of staying in the presence of something real without reaching instinctively for the exit. This transformation does not announce itself. It does not send progress reports or arrival notifications. It happens in the private geography of a person's interior life, in the small and unseeable ways that a human being rearranges themselves when the alternative, remaining who they were, has stopped feeling like enough. And when it reaches a certain threshold, a certain critical mass of readiness, it will move. It will reach. It will reach for you. The universe confirms what the logical mind doubts, and it does so through the particular language of synchronicity, that network of meaningful coincidence through which the deeper currents of reality communicate with those who have learned to pay attention with something other than skepticism, something other than the protective numbness of a mind that has been hurt before and prefers certainty to hope. You may have already noticed some of what is being described here. The number patterns appearing with unusual frequency in the ordinary landscape of your day, on clocks and license plates and receipts and page numbers, carrying with them a quiet insistence that you are seen, that you are held within the awareness of something larger than your current confusion. The songs that arrive with startling precision, the lyrics finding the exact center of what you have been feeling in a way that seems too specific to be random, too perfectly timed to be coincidence. The dreams that carry a quality of encounter rather than mere imagery, in which they appear not as memory, but as presence, communicating something that cannot quite be translated into waking language, but leaves a residue of warmth, of nearness, of something impending. These are not the inventions of a grieving mind finding patterns in noise. These are the advanced signals of an energetic movement that precedes physical action the way weather precedes a storm. The atmospheric pressure changing in ways you can feel before the first clouds appear on the horizon. Energy always moves before matter. The invisible always shifts before the visible catches up. There is also the sudden and inexplicable warmth, the moments when you feel, with a certainty that has no rational basis, that they are thinking of you at precisely this moment, that your name is present somewhere in the landscape of their consciousness with an immediacy and an intention that differs from the ordinary background hum of memory. These moments are not self-deception. They are the signal crossing the energetic distance between you, arriving at the receiving instrument of your awareness, exactly as it was sent. Pay attention to the peripheral movements of your experience. Pay attention to what appears at the edges, to what repeats itself with quiet insistence, to what the analytical mind dismisses and the knowing part of you receives with a recognition that needs no explanation. The closer the return, the louder these signals become. It will not come the way you have imagined it in the quiet rehearsals of your mind, the careful scripts, the perfectly balanced exchanges, the conversations you have constructed in advance, where every word lands with clarity and grace, and no one is more vulnerable than the moment calls for. The return, when it comes, will not respect the orderly framework of how you imagined it would feel, and this is not a flaw in how it unfolds, but rather the evidence of its authenticity, the mark of something too real to stay within the boundaries of any scenario you could have scripted for it. It may be sudden. It may arrive in a form so understated that you almost miss the enormity of what is happening. A message that begins with ordinary words. A phone call that starts with an excuse before it finds its real purpose. A chance encounter so precisely timed that the word coincidence dissolves the moment you attempt to apply it. Or it may arrive with an urgency that has been building for so long that when the dam finally gives, there is no controlled release, no gradual approach, only the full and unmediated force of everything that was held back arriving at once. There will be no rehearsed words when the real moment comes. There will be no carefully managed presentation of self designed to seem appropriately vulnerable, without giving too much away. What arrives will be raw, the stripped and undefended truth of a person who spent their time in silence, discovering that the version of themselves that walked away was not the version they wanted to be, and that the distance they placed between you did not produce the relief or the clarity they perhaps hoped for, but only a particular kind of absence that nothing else in their life was capable of filling. They will stand before you, in whatever form that standing takes, physical or digital or through the unexpected intermediary of a mutual world that has conspired to make the meeting unavoidable, not with the confidence of someone who has everything resolved, but with the honesty of someone who has arrived at the end of their capacity to pretend that this does not matter. And you will feel it before they say it. You will know, in the moment of its approach, that this is not another chapter of confusion, but the beginning of something that finally has the foundation it always deserved. Share this message with someone who is waiting, someone whose faith is tired but not yet extinguished, someone who needs to hear that what they are holding is not foolishness but foresight. You have already won something that their silence cannot reach, cannot diminish, cannot negotiate away from you through absence or delay or the slow accumulation of uncounted days. You have won the knowledge of your own depth, the proof of your own capacity to feel with the full and unguarded force of someone who has not allowed previous wounds to seal the most essential part of them into permanent protection. In a world that rewards guardedness, that treats emotional availability as naivety and deep feeling as a vulnerability to be corrected, the ability to love without fully closing yourself down is not weakness. It is the rarest and most difficult form of courage available to a human being. You have already chosen yourself in this waiting, not by performing indifference, not by manufacturing a detachment you do not feel, but by continuing to live with integrity, by refusing to collapse into bitterness or self-erasure, by maintaining within yourself the knowing that what you experienced was real, even when nothing in the external world confirmed it. Their return is inevitable, moving toward this present moment with the patient certainty of something written in a language older than either of your individual lives. And hold this paradox with the care it deserves, your peace, your wholeness, your fundamental capacity for joy in this existence, is not dependent on it. The return would be a reunion. Your contentment is not waiting on their arrival to begin. This is the beautiful and somewhat disorienting truth that operates at the heart of genuine spiritual law. The less your sense of self requires their presence to feel complete, the less your daily peace is held hostage to whether they return or when, the more powerfully you become a frequency that their own system cannot continue to resist. Not as manipulation, not as strategy, but as the natural consequence of what happens when a person steps fully into their own sovereignty. The energetic signal changes. The desperation that drives things away transmutes into the wholeness that draws them back. You are not diminished by this waiting. You are being refined by it, in the way that all genuine transformation requires a period of intense, invisible pressure before what is being formed reveals its final shape. The waiting is not wasted time. It is the last stage of preparation before the life you have been building toward. Through every experience, every wound, every moment of choosing to remain open, finally, fully arrives. This story is not finished. Sit with that sentence and allow it to do what it was designed to do. Displace the false conclusion, the premature ending, the narrative your fear has been trying to seal into permanence with a small and persistent voice that says this is over. This was nothing. This silence is the final word in a conversation that will not resume. That voice is not prophetic. It is only frightened, and it has been narrating from the limited vantage point of someone standing too close to the present moment to perceive the full arc of what is unfolding. What is meant for you will not pass you. This is not comfort fashioned to make difficult circumstances feel more bearable. This is the operating principle of a universe that does not misplace what it has authored with intention, that does not bring two frequencies into contact with a power and precision that you experienced only to dissolve the connection before it has fulfilled the purpose for which it was made. You did not feel what you felt by mistake. The recognition was not an error. The soul does not generate that quality of knowing accidentally, does not invest that depth of response in something that was never meant to become real. See them now, in the space of your inner vision, as they are in this moment, not in the guarded, retreating form of someone managing distance, but in their most private and undefended state, in the 3 a.m. hours when the silence they chose presses back against them with the full weight of everything it contains. See them holding the thought of you with a tenderness they have not yet found the courage to deliver. See them at the threshold of themselves, standing at the edge of the person they were and the person this connection is asking them to become, choosing with increasing frequency the direction that leads back. They are preparing. The preparation is already underway in ways neither you nor they can fully see or measure. And when it reaches its completion, when the fear finally becomes smaller than the love, as it will, as it is designed to do, the movement toward you will not be tentative or half-committed. It will carry the full weight of everything that was held back, every unspoken word, every 3 a.m. thought that never became a message, every moment of reaching for the phone and setting it down again because the time was not yet what it needed to be. And you will be here, not diminished, not desperate, not rearranged by waiting into someone unrecognizable to yourself, but whole, rooted, standing in the full and quiet authority of someone who trusted the truth of what they knew when nothing in the visible world confirmed it. Love does not end in silence. It only waits there. And what waits in love does not wait in vain.